Hey inventors, got an idea for the next big toy? Then get down to the Inventors Workshop this September 20th and pitch your idea to Hasbro, Jazzwares and Argos. Visit inventorsworkshopevent.com to book your place at Whittlebury Hall.
Welcome to episode 27 of the Meet the Parents podcast and another slice of parenting chat. I'm Tim from Slouching Towards Thatcham, and this week we're having a dad's night in as I talk to Dave, the dad venturer, and Mark from Best Dad I Can Be. Good evening, chaps.
Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. So it's been a while since we caught up with Dave, and longer than a while since we last had Mark on board. So tonight we're just going to have a chat about what we've been up to over the summer holidays. I'll then be talking to Frances Cain, the creator of the A Girl for All Time range of dolls and accessories, as part of my series of interviews with parent toy entrepreneurs ahead of the Inventors Workshop later this month. So this week it really is a case of guys and dolls. Yeah, okay, I'll get my coat. Like I'm sure many of our listeners did, we took a break from the podcast during August to enjoy the summer holidays. Now, Dave's, my and Mark's kids run the full gamut of ages from toddler to university graduate, so we thought we'd catch up about what each of the three of us have been up to over the past few weeks. So let's start with Dave. Now, toddler Elle had a bit of a landmark, didn't she, over the summer holiday? She turned 2 during August. Now, given her age, obviously you're not bound by school term times, which, as a stay-at-home dad, I guess means that during the school holidays, everything you'd normally do is just that much more crowded than usual. So, yeah, does it make you do anything differently as a result?
Yes, it's exactly that. That's my life, which I view it as term time and non-term time. So during term time, I can do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. There's no crowds. You can park easily. As soon as it's summer holidays or Easter holidays or anything like that, there's just kids and people everywhere and everything's busy and I just hate it. So I just end up staying in the house most of the time, and we find things to do around the garden or going to the local woods and walking the dog and things like that. So it's less about going to places like museums or toddler classes or anything like that, and more about avoiding the crowds, really.
Yeah, so you're seeking those oases of quiet far from the madding crowd, aren't you?
Well, you say that, but I've got a toddler, so, it's not really much quiet apart from nap time.
Yeah, I guess she's a mad crowd all on her own, isn't she? So
exactly.
What sort of things have you been doing with toddler Elle during the summer holidays?
Well, we went to Copenhagen for a couple of days. Hayley's just switching jobs at the moment, so she's been off for a couple of weeks, which has been quite nice to spend a bit of time as a family. So, yeah, we had 3 days in Copenhagen, which was quite cool. We've had a couple of day trips, so things like Brighton the other day, and we went to check out the lavender fields at Hitchin.
That is the blogger's go-to place, isn't it, for the South East?
It is. It is. I wrote a post a couple of weeks ago, actually, sort of taking the piss out of myself for doing that, because I'd just sort of going on a tangent slightly. I tweeted about the fact that I feel like a really crap parent blogger because I've never been to a lavender gardens, and having seen basically every other parent blogger being on Instagram with photos of the kids frolicking in lavender, I thought I had to go.
Do you mind if I can resign from the podcast now? Because in 22 years of being a parent, I've never even been anywhere near a lavender garden. So I better dob myself into social services, haven't I?
What else have you been up to?
So luckily we've still had one toddler class which has been going on. So that's Little Kickers. That's the football sort of focused one that we go to. Apart from that, it's been things like I mentioned before, like going into the woods and just sort of having an explore and stuff like that, and taking the dog for a walk. We did have Elle's birthday, as you mentioned before, so we had our grandparents, had her grandparents around for a barbecue, which is quite nice because we don't get to see them that often, with them being a few hours away up north. But that's about it, really.
You've been busy as well, haven't you? And every time I see or read anything you've done, you seem to be mostly either going up in various aircraft, and when you're coming down, sometimes you're coming down in the aircraft, and sometimes you're not, aren't you?
Very true. I did a skydive a few weeks ago, which was an experience, to say the least. And then, obviously, we had Copenhagen as well, but I didn't jump out of that plane. I thought that might be a little bit too high.
And then you were airborne again just this last weekend, weren't you?
I was. I totally forgot about that one. Yeah, we went up in a helicopter. So it was a experience day that my brother had bought us for Christmas, and it's only taken us 9 months to actually book it and get on it. So yeah, me and Hayley managed to get a few hours away from Toddler L and have a nice afternoon tea and a helicopter ride around Hatfield House.
Oh, very nice. Now schools are back. So now that everyone's back at school, have you got any particular plans for the next few weeks, or is it just slotting back into the old routine?
Yeah, it's normal service resumes, really. We've got the toddler classes that I mentioned, so we're starting Tappy Toes, which is a sort of a ballet dancing one. I think I'll look particularly fetching in a tutu. And then we've got water babies, so baby swimming, which we've been doing for a year and a half. Tumble tots, which is a sort of gymnastic one that we've been doing for just over a year. And then little kickers, as I mentioned before.
Excellent. Okay, so let's move on now to Mark. Now, it's been a fair few months since we last spoke to you, but with good reason. You've been working towards a big goal with your son that you achieved over the summer, walking the Pennine Way. So just remind us, what made you decide to do that?
Well, we didn't walk the entire Pennine Way. We did 5 days, Tim.
Oh, lightweight.
Quite so. I mean, that's the whole of it would have been about 2.5-3 weeks, and that was too much time to take off work. But this was just something that I said to him one day in March. You know, I fancied a physical challenge before my left knee decided the only thing it was good for was a waiting list, and I wanted to spend some time with my son. And I'm actually going to break with convention here. I'm going to start using my children's real names on the podcast. The two of them have graduated now, and Alex, who's Ben on the blog, is 17. I think they're old enough now to be okay about their identities being used. So Alex said he'd come with me. I wanted to spend some time with him before he went away to university, which he'll do in about 12 months' time. And while he still wanted to spend time with me, so it was a fantastic thing to do. Had I known how hard it was going to be before I set off, I wouldn't have set off. And on the off chance that my son listens to this podcast, I wouldn't have done it without him. It was a fantastic thing to do. And it's quite interesting that, you know, your children, Tim, and I'm sure the children of a lot of people listening to this podcast, and Dave's daughter, will at some stage at school be asked, do they want to do the Duke of Edinburgh Award? Alex has done Duke of Edinburgh. He's on his Gold Award now. You tend to think of something like that as just a box that you tick alongside music lessons and extra language lessons or something like that. I've got to tell you, when we were walking between Hawes and the Tanhill Inn on the Wednesday, and it rained, and we were in low cloud, and there was gales and hail in the first week of August, that was a serious day. And without my son's Duke of Edinburgh experience, I don't know what would have happened to us.
Yeah, now you've written on the blog, haven't you, about some of the adventures that you had on the walk itself,
yeah.
And I know you're writing an ebook about it as well. So
I am, yes. I'm up to 9,363 words at the moment. Looks like it's going to be about 35,000 to 40,000.
Oh, right. So can you just sum up some of the highlights and lowlights of your walk for us?
The whole thing was a highlight, and sometimes you go on holiday or you do something, and a month after it you look back and you think, oh well, it was all right, wasn't it? A month after we finished the Pennine Way, I look back at it and I actually think it was much better than I thought it was. at the time. It's something that I am incredibly pleased to have done with my son, and it's something that I would recommend to all parents. Low lights. If you've read my blog, you'll know that I broke 2 fingers on the last day, and I'm sitting here doing the podcast squeezing a tennis ball. Was that a low light? It wasn't really. It was part of the experience. It was just a brilliant thing to do. One of the evenings I was so tired, so exhausted that I couldn't speak when my wife phoned to check I was still alive. I just said to Alex, just tell her I'll speak to her in the morning. It would be wrong, I think, to single out any highlights and lowlights because the whole thing was just an experience of itself and just a brilliant thing to do with your son.
Yeah, so what kind of an impact would you say it's had on your relationship with Alex? Presumably it's helped bring you even closer together.
Well, we were very, very close before. Alex and I had always had deep conversations and things like that. So it cemented what was an already strong relationship. It was really interesting to see the father-son dynamic at work. You know that old saying of Master Yoda, which one master is and which one apprentice. Well, who is in charge on the Pennine Way? As you will see as you read future blogs, map reading turned out to be not one of my great skills in life. Physically, it was demanding. We've got this enormous bloody pack that we were carrying, or that Alex carried for most of the time. But it was just a great thing to do. But it's something I think that years to come we will look back on, and when they wheel me away into the home for distressed bloggers, that will be one of the things that I remember.
Yeah, and I guess, like you say, it's one of those real experiences, isn't it? So, if you want to find out more about Mark's adventures on the Pennine Way and why exactly Alex took a photo of him walking along in his underpants, then check out his blog, or better still, check out his ebook when it's published.
Just nicely out of focus, that picture, I thought, But you can't ask a teenage boy to make a bigger sacrifice than to walk behind his dad when his dad's only wearing his underpants. It's that kind of summed up the relationship, I think.
It brings a whole new meaning to the term walk of shame.
Okay, Tim, your turn. I know you've been up to lots over the summer. You started off by going camping, didn't you?
Yeah, first week of the summer holidays, and it was actually our first taste of camping as a family. It was a case of 5 Go to Camp Festival. Now, there's a book Enid Blyton never wrote, and actually it went about as well as we could possibly have hoped for. It was great fun. The kids had a whale of a time. There was lots of stuff for them to do. Yeah, the weather was perfect. I almost kind of likened it to being like the world's biggest village fete, and not in a bad way. And it was also their first taste of live music. And we had Mr. Tumble live too. The sacrifices you make for your children.
I was going to say, you just said that it was a good weekend, and then you throw that he was there. What was that about?
I may have chosen that particular half hour to have a little doze.
And you've been indulging your boys' car obsession too, haven't you?
Oh, yes. Regular readers will know just how obsessed the boys are with cars and the London Underground. But, with Carver still at preschool, I indulged in my now customary habit of taking a random day off a week for the 2 weeks after Camp Festival, just to spend with the boys. So we had a couple of boys' days out. We went to Reading to visit Europe's largest BMW dealership outside of Germany. And believe me, that was far more exciting for the boys than it sounds. And we also did our now traditional annual trip to the National Motor Museum at Beaulieu, which is really just an excuse for them to look at lots of Top Gear stuff.
So basically you could just take them to like a car park and they'd be happy, it sounds like.
Yes, and and funnily enough, we may have done that on more than one occasion in the past.
Good stuff. And if that wasn't enough, then you went to France, didn't you? With the sole purpose of posing for loads of Instagram photos to make us all jealous.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yes, we did go to France for 2 weeks. We went to Disneyland Paris. Then we spent a couple of days in Paris itself. Then we headed over to the Alps and we came back via Rouen. Now, we didn't actually tell the kids we were going to Disney. We just kind of quietly rocked up and bang, there we were. So that was kind of quite a nice surprise for them. And actually, it was the first time we've done more than a week in one go with the kids. And it was also the first time we've driven rather than flown overseas. So, aside from it being a lot cheaper, it was actually just so much better driving than flying despite the long drives. The kids have already decided we're going to do it again.
So finally, your boys are back at school now, aren't they? So what's happening with Cara at the moment?
Yes, so the big moment's finally arrived for her. She's moving up from preschool to primary school, but she doesn't start until the middle of next week. So that will give us one more chance to get that first day at school picture, which obviously no one has ever taken before. And it kind of feels a little bit actually like the end of an era. We've had 8 years of sending the kids to the same nursery and preschool. And we keep joking with the owner that we're not sure how they're going to be able to continue funding their various refurbishments and new extensions without us. It is a bit sad. Our little girl is growing up, but she is absolutely ready for it. Plus, from a logistics perspective, we now have the bonus of having all 3 kids in the same place for the next 3 years. Result. So that's what we've been up to this summer. So speaking just for myself, we've had lots of fun and adventures, but I'm still glad the boys are back in school. And to be fair, they probably consider it a rest after the summer they've had as well.
Hey inventors, got an idea for the next big toy? Then get down to the Inventors Workshop on September 20th and pitch your idea to Hasbro, Argos and more. Visit inventorsworkshopevent.com to book your place at Whittlebury Hall.
Last week I spoke to Gillian Logan, whose drawing kit brand Skinny Sketcher was one of the success stories of the first Inventors Workshop in 2014. This event helps match up budding entrepreneurs with contacts from the toy trade, and it returns to Whittlebury Hall in Northamptonshire on September the 20th. Now this week I'm talking to another mother, Frances Cain, who has had enormous success launching her own multi-award-winning range of dolls and accessories, a girl for all time. So hello Frances.
Hello Tim.
Just to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yes, well, as you can probably tell from the accent, I was not born in the UK. I was originally born in the States, in Chicago. And about 24 years ago, my husband and I moved to the Netherlands very shortly after our wedding, with the thought that we would stay in Europe for 4 or 5 years and then move back. We never did do the moving back bit, but we did move to the UK after about 2 years in the Netherlands. And really, we've loved it so much that we have not returned to the States permanently yet. We've got 2 children, a 14-year-old and a nearly 18-year-old. And before I started A Girl for All Time, I was a stay-at-home mom, but before that I worked in the event industry, which I absolutely loved because a lot of what we did were events that centered around historical buildings and lovely bespoke garden tours and all sorts of wonderful things that really helped me to get to know this country wonderfully well, and I've loved it ever since.
A Girl for All Time covers a range of products for girls, so can you tell us a little bit more about where the inspiration for this came from?
Yeah, of course. When my own daughter was about 8 or 9 years old, I was suddenly struck by how little there actually was for her to play with that celebrated her being a girl in an intelligent and thoughtful way. For my son, who was a few years younger, it was very easy to find well-made toys that embraced either strategy or math or design, but my daughter's choices really seemed to be limited to pretend ironing boards or plastic lipstick, things like that. And it seemed to me that anything that was feminine was not terribly intelligently made or thoughtfully produced, and anything that had a lot of intelligence and design behind it really was stripped of all femininity. For me, I felt that this was a dangerous message to be giving both our boys and our girls. Feminine play patterns really should have every bit as depth and challenge to it as masculine play patterns, but I couldn't find anything like that on the market at the time. So an idea started to ferment, and only 4 years of research later, I was able to launch A Girl for All Time.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. We've encountered similar things in trying to find an appropriate range of toys and games for our daughter, who's 4 years old as well. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. That now the range started from, and it's centered around a range of very high quality dolls, but it's not just that, isn't it? So what kind of products are available in the range?
Right. No, you're exactly right, Tim. It's not just dolls. We currently have just over 45 SKUs, items available. So it is articulated, beautifully crafted dolls, but then there are novels that go with the dolls that tell the characters' stories. They have little pets and accessories. We even have things like beautiful boar's hair, bristled hairbrushes. All of our products are individually designed by our award-winning team at A Girl for All Time. And the range actually tells the story of a fictional family. We follow their adventures through 500 years of history, starting Tudor times and going up into present day.
And what kind of age range are the products aimed at?
Really 7 and older. There's been quite a bit of research around play patterns, and younger than 6-7 years old, children tend to do more nurturing play. But once they hit that 7-8-year-old mark, it's more companion play, and that's what we are. We are really a companion play doll. We are not really a nurturing play doll. So 7 and up.
Now, obviously there are a lot of dolls and similar types of products already on the market. So can you just talk a little bit more about what makes A Girl for All Time different from those other products?
Our range is unique in a lot of ways, actually, Tim. First of all, the concept of the doll range itself. As far as I know, there is no other doll brand on the market that has created a family tree of characters as we have. As I said before, A Girl for All Time follows the adventures of the firstborn girls of the fictional Marchmont family through 500 years. The series starts with Matilda, who, at the age of 13, is sent to the court of Henry VIII to act as a spy and further her family fortunes. She then bequeaths her travel trunk filled with treasures and filled with her secret diary to the firstborn girls of the Marchmont family to be inherited on their 13th birthday. So we follow this trunk through all of the stories and all of the girls who inherit it, and we learn their stories through the trunk and through their adventures. We also have a unique and hugely talented team behind the range, most of whom come from the world of British television and film. We've got team members on A Girl for All Time who have worked on films such as Legend, which was just out in November. Our costumier is actually an Emmy-nominated Hollywood costumier. Our author is a twice BAFTA-nominated screenwriter. We are predominantly a female-based company. Our illustrator, package designer, graphics artist, social media manager, all of us are women, which I think does give us an edge if we are trying to manufacture and design a girl's product. And we also design all of our products ourselves. We don't purchase any quote-unquote white label items, so that means that every design that we have in the range has a reason and a purpose to it. And we really do pride ourselves in our research and provenance.
Yeah, the quality definitely shows. Even just browsing the website, it's clear that that quality runs through everything that goes into the range. So you launched the range at the London Toy Fair in 2012, didn't you? So how has the range developed and grown over time?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we started with just 4 items, and now we've got nearly 50 at the moment, with more ready to launch at the end of the year and more again in 2017. The range has had a natural progression of characters and accessories added to it due to the fact that it does follow a family tree. So as we kind of developed the characters and we developed the family, that was an easy way and a quite logical way to expand the range with characters, accessories, costumes, new stories, etc. But now what we've done is we are expanding into a contemporary doll range called Your Modern Girl, which sees the Marchmont family tree actually come all the way up into present day. And our current Marchmont girl, whose name is Maya, she and her 5 best friends will make up the core of Your Modern Girl range. Now, I'm really excited about this, Tim, because what it means now that we've got a group of friends rather than a family tree, this gives us scope for much more ethnic and social diversity. So it will be very representative, I think, of today's girls, their different social groups, different ethnicities, and I can't wait until they're released at the end of the year.
Excellent. Now, each of the dolls you have has a very different look and history and backstory, doesn't it? Yeah, including one that's based in 18th century America, I think. So, where did you come up with the ideas for all of these?
Well, the original concept of the historical dolls came about really because of my own love of history and family narrative. I've always been slightly obsessed with family trees. I can trace my own father's side of the family back to the 1570s, and we were in Worcester here in the UK. So for me, teaching about family narrative in the form of beautifully crafted dolls and stories made sense. It was a very logical way to share my passion, not only for history, but for family narrative. And a doll range that covers English history is not one that's been done before, so that seemed a natural fit. The periods that we've decided to introduce, Victorian, Tudor, World War II, Georgian, these are all loosely based on the periods that are taught in Key Stage 2 in primary schools. So children already have an affinity and a knowledge for these periods, and it makes it quite easy for children to relate to the characters and to get into the stories quickly.
That's really interesting, and I like the way that it's tied into Key Stage 2. So as you say, that there is already an association with those time periods.
Mm.
Now, of course, having established yourself, you're not just standing still, are you? Now, you launched a Kickstarter campaign recently, didn't you? Which I think was to fund Your Modern Girl. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, Kickstarter. Oh my goodness, I tell you what, Tim, that was a roller coaster ride. A huge amount of work, but really worth it. You're right, that's how we funded our new contemporary line, Your Modern Girl. I think, you and I have talked about this before, smaller companies these days, we really need to be quite nimble and able to think out of the box. However much I hate that phrase, it's overused, but it's true. Financing new products and new ideas is a challenge, and Kickstarter is a great platform for new designs and products. It works as a pre-sale. It also works as a marketing tool because you reach people who might not know about you. So I'm really proud of our Kickstarter campaign being funded because fewer than 40% of all Kickstarter campaigns are successful. So I'm thrilled that we managed to get that funded.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant just in itself. So beyond that, have you got any other plans for the future?
Loads of plans, not only for the end of 2016, but for 2017 and beyond. New product, new ranges, expansion of existing ones, and fingers crossed 2017 should see a new publishing arm being established, which is really going to help our books become a fully fledged library. We have a new website launching in a few weeks, and we've got new sales channels being developed. And I just had my first pitch to the Huffington Post accepted, so I hope to be writing a lot more in the future as well.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So what about the Inventors Workshop? What's your relationship with the event?
Well, I'm really excited about the workshop. I'm going to be sitting in on a round table, speaking to new inventors, basically sharing war stories about how I got started, maybe things I wish I had done differently, things that I think I did correctly. It's the first time I've done this, so I'm really looking forward to it. And having had literally zero experience myself in manufacturing or design or selling within the toy industry, I do feel it's a fantastic resource for anyone thinking of launching into toys. And there will be some amazing contacts there as well, and people who are keen to see new talent and new designs come to the market.
Yeah, and I think it must be really valuable to be able to share your experience, because I'm sure that must be quite a common thing for toy inventors, where you have an idea, but you don't necessarily know anything about the commercial side of it or how to set up manufacturing and so on. So I think to be able to share, the war stories, as it were, has got to be very valuable and encouraging for other people who may find themselves in the same position that you were in 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes, yeah.
Now, you talked about Huffington Post just now, didn't you? So your website has its own blog as well, doesn't it?
It does, yes. We've got a blog. If you head over to the landing page, there's a little window on the left saying Frances's blog. So we talk about all sorts of things, from maybe new product down to why we've decided to launch the things we've launched. Personal family history, for example. I discovered only last year that one of my ancestors was the very first person to write about the very first Thanksgiving. He was an eyewitness, and so he, in effect, was probably the first blogger himself. So, yeah, it's a little bit of mishmash of everything in the blog.
So clearly, it runs in the blood, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
and that's at www.girlforalltime.com, isn't it?
.com. Yep, that's it.
So I guess just to start wrapping this up, the nitty gritty. Where can people find a Girl for All Time products for sale?
We are in Toycraft of Chester. We're in Hamleys on Regent Street, Honey Jam, Benjamin Pollock's, and Covent Garden. And of course, we have our own online shop at agirlforalltime.com.
Excellent. So finally, what one piece of advice would you give to anyone who has an idea for a new toy or a game that they're thinking of bringing to market?
One piece of advice. Well, I would have to say, if you've got your design and you're thinking of bringing it to market and you're serious about your product, build your fan base. You can have the most amazing product in the world, but if you've not taken the time to build a fan base and your social media platforms, no one is going to be able to find you. So take the time, start blogging while you're designing, start posting, get to know the influencers in your market, and get yourself out there.
Excellent. That sounds like some very good advice. So thanks, Frances, for taking the time to talk to me this week, and hopefully I'll see you on the 20th, and I'll be able to listen to more of your experiences and your learnings and more stories at your round table. So don't forget, you can find out more about the A Girl for All Time range at agirlforalltime.com, and if you're a budding toy maker with an interest in launching your own product, you can find out more about attending the Inventors Workshop at their website, www.inventorsworkshopevent.com. And that's it for another episode of the Meet the Parents podcast. We'll be back next week, but in the meantime, here's where you can find the three of us online.
I'm at thedadventurer.com and Twitter at @the_dadventurer.
Yeah, I'm at Complete with Broken Fingers at bestdadicanbe.com and on Twitter at bestdadicanbe.
And you can find me at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com and on Twitter at ThatchamDad. So you can download this podcast on iTunes and on Android devices, on our website at meettheparentspodcast.com, and via a variety of podcasting apps. And do please give us a follow on Twitter at Parents Podcast and Facebook at facebook.com/meettheparentspodcast. So thanks for listening, and do please join us again next week. Good night.